Welcome to the Think Tank. And this week we're going to learn about ships, from galleons to submarines, the Titanic, modern cruise ships, and more. So let's take a peek at our flashcards for this week's class. All right, so I'll read the term, and at home or in class, see if you can come up with the term that we're talking about. So the first one is the world's oldest active sailing ship is the Star of India. We'll learn a little bit more about the Star of India. Here's a fun fact about the Star of India. This ship sailed around the world 21 times. And a keel. Have you ever heard that word keel? Can you say that?
A keel.
Keel. Okay, let's take a look. That's the structure that it's along the center line at the bottom of a vessel's hull, on which the rest of the hull is built. And in some vessels, it extends downward as a blade or a ridge to increase the stability of the boat. So if you think about the underside of a boat, and the keel is what's underneath, and it weighs hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds, depending on the size of the ship. And it keeps the ship or the boat stable in the water. And if the winds come, and you know how the sails push the ship over, the keel underneath is what keeps the ship from going completely over. It'll help ride it back up. Galleon. Can you say that word? Galleon?
Galleon.
Mm-hmm. What is a galleon? That's a large three-masted sailing ship used from the 15th to the 17th century for trade or warfare. So bringing goods from one place to another, or even in war. So some of them were equipped with guns or cannons. And then everyone knows this one, submarine.
Submarine.
A submersible. So look at the first part of that word, submersible, and that means it's able to go under the water. A submersible warship, usually armed with torpedoes. I've actually been on a real submarine.
Me too.
Yes, so super cool. Oh, very cool.
Two aircraft carriers. And
yeah, if you go to Hawaii and you go to I think it was in Pearl Harbor, you can actually go on the USS Missouri.
Very good. So I'll bet you've heard of the Titanic. Raise your hand if you've heard of that. So that was a British passenger liner that sank in the North Atlantic Ocean in the early morning hours of April 15th in 1912, after she struck an iceberg during her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City. Okay, and cruise ship. Raise your hand if you've been on a cruise ship. That's a lot of fun. So
I got hurt on the cruise ship.
Oh no. So a cruise ship, it's like a large hotel that people travel on for pleasure, which is very, very different from submarines or any sort of warship. This is a big...
Oh. Have you ever taken a bath or played in a swimming pool, lake, or ocean? Maybe you've noticed that there are some things that make really good bath or pool toys, and other things, well, not so much. The term buoyancy refers to how well something floats or sinks. If something is able to float, we would say that it's buoyant. So, what makes something float or sink?
Okay, so if you are doing an experiment and trying to decide if something will sink or float, what's the first thing you're going to pay attention to before you make your decision? Philip?
If the thing is like empty, or like if the, for example, ship, if it's hollow, because if it isn't hollow like many Lego ships, some Lego ships that would sink since it's really
Okay. So you want to pay attention to its mass or its density, right? Good. All right, so let's learn about some ships. So here's one, galleons, that we saw in our vocabulary words. So a galleon was a large multi-decked sailing ship used primarily by the nations of Europe from the 16th to 17th, or 16th to 18th centuries. Whether used for war or commerce, they were generally armed with cannons. The galleon was powered entirely by sail and carried on 3 to 5 masts. They were used in both military and trade applications. Galleons were constructed from oak for the keel, pine for the masts, and various hardwoods for the hull and the decking. And those masts, Philip, are what you were talking about in your graphic novel for your story. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this video on the Mayflower. It's a galleon. Okay, who's ready for a pop quiz? Okay, how many babies were born aboard the Mayflower?
one.
Nice. How many days did it take them on their journey?
About a month.
Okay, anybody else? Kyoshi?
I'm gonna say 2 months.
About 2 months?
66
About
days.
2, you got it. You got it, good job. That's okay, hey, it's pop quiz.
I want a sticker.
I don't know.
You get a gold star. Oh, this is how Blackbeard, oh no, where are we on? Oh, switch gears, where are we? Where are we?
Blackbeard.
Blackbeard, let's learn about Blackbeard. Ooh, he tricked out his ship. Cool.
Blackbeard seized Queen Anne's Revenge because it was the perfect ship for a pirate. Now, archaeologists are building a picture of the 6-month period in which she sailed under his command.
Having that big ship out for goods.
What?
Okay, it looks like it's time for a song. You guys ready? How many of you are familiar with the Yellow Submarine by the Beatles? It's a good one. You can sing along if you like.
In the town where I was born lived a man who sailed to sea, and he told
All right, so let's learn a little bit more about submarines. So submarines are a special type of watercraft that can operate underwater, as we all know. Nuclear submarines may have a crew of over 100. Submarines are used by the military as part of Navy forces, protecting aircraft carriers, performing reconnaissance, and carrying out other tasks. Submarines are also used in other areas such as marine research, undersea exploration, and salvage missions. Some submarines can remain submerged for months at a time. Early submersibles were developed in the 1600s before the first known military submarine was built in 1775. Named the Turtle, it held one person and was controlled underwater independently, and the first verified submarine capable of doing so. Both sides of the American Civil War built and used submarines. Developed in the 1800s, torpedoes became an important part of submarine warfare. Philip,
Thanks to a system of internal and external ballast tanks.
We have 5 external ballast tanks that are normally filled with air when I'm riding on the surface. When it is time for us to dive, we'll open vents on those ballast tanks. There's grates on the bottom of the ship that allow water to come in, displace the air, making the ship just slightly negatively buoyant. We then proceed down to the depth that we want to go to. And we use internal ballast tanks to make the ship neutrally buoyant, that then we can progress on our way in whatever depth we choose.
pretty amazing engineering. All right. Now we get to see a fun movie trailer.
Will rain hell down from on high. Dear Lord, let your holy angel be with me, that the evil foe may have no power over me. Into your hands I commend myself, my body, and soul. Amen.
Wow. Well, this looks like a really exciting movie. I don't know. I think I want to see this.
I'm probably gonna watch
Definitely
it.
a good COVID binge.
Yeah. Looks good. All right. Cruise ships. These are fun. Like I said, like a big floating hotel. So they're the largest cruise ship is twice the length of the Washington Monument. 2 cruise ships served as makeshift shelters for those left homeless after Hurricane Katrina. That's a super good use of a cruise ship. The first cruise ship set sail in 1900. Cruise ship anchors weigh about as much as 4 elephants. That's very heavy. Cruise ships are terrible for the environment. Well, we don't like hearing that, do we? So each ship uses an average of 150 tons of fuel a day, which releases the same amount of particulate matter into the air as about 1 million cars. Oh, goodness.
We should
Have to rethink our use of cruise ships.
We should think about making making electronic cruise ships so they're using, like cars instead of gas cars, make them into electronic.
Good thinking. I like your thinking there. All right, the Titanic. The Titanic was only a fraction of the size of our modern day cruise ships. The ship burned around 600 tons of coal a day, hand shoveled into its furnaces by a team of 176 men. They were Olympic 1911, Titanic 1912, and Britannic 1915. All 3 were designed to be the largest and most luxurious passenger ships in the world. The second ship was given the name Titanic, started its maiden voyage on April 10th, 1912, and sank only 5 days later after hitting an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. Or, if you believe Philip's theory, who knows?
I have another comment, is that the ship's designer first requested for enough lifeboats for everyone on the ship, but they turned it down because the ship would look bulky. And he was
Very
right.
true.
So now, after the sinking of the Titanic, I forgot what year, but it was required for every ship to have enough lifeboats for every of their passengers and crew members.
Thank goodness.
Philip, do you know why they took off the lifeboats?
Because it would make the ship look bulky.
And also the rumor for the catchphrase for the Titanic was it's unsinkable. Yet they named 2 the Titanic and they both sank. So.
Oh, goodness.
At 2:20 in the morning, the British ocean liner Titanic disappeared into the depths of the North Atlantic Ocean about 400 miles south of Newfoundland, Canada. It took 3,000 men 2 years to build this massive ship. Its huge hull was held together by 3 million rivets, and it could transport 2,200 passengers and crew. But having struck an iceberg, the ship took on water before sinking 12,600 feet to the dark depths, never to be fully salvaged. Today, we ask why. In this episode of the Infographic Show, why is Titanic still at the bottom of the ocean? Before we answer this question, let's first look at what we know about Titanic's last few days at sea. On April 10th, the RMS Titanic departed Southampton, England, on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic was designed by the Irish shipbuilder Thomas Andrews, and it was owned by Bruce Ismay. It was thought to be unsinkable. The ship traveled to Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, to pick up some passengers before setting out into the Atlantic, full steam ahead to New York. On its first journey across the highly competitive Atlantic ferry route, the ship carried some 2,200 passengers and crew. Just before midnight on April 14th, the Titanic collided with an iceberg, which smashed into at least 5 of its hull compartments. As these compartments filled with water, the bow of the ship was pulled down until it was almost vertical. Then the Titanic broke in half before sinking to its end. More than 1,500 people died, either by being dragged down with the ship or freezing to death in the icy North Atlantic waters. It took nearly an hour and a half for help to arrive, but more than 700 people were saved. Most of those survivors were women and children. Milvina Dean was the last living survivor of the Titanic. She passed away on May 31st, 2009. Milvina.
Okay, well, here's another kind of boat, very different, speed racers. They are longer boats and are faster. 317.6 miles per hour was the fastest boat speed ever recorded. Water jet propulsion is more efficient than a propeller, and the double hull speedboats produce less drag. So just a few little facts about speed racers. How many of you are aware of the speed race or the speed racing that goes on in the bay over here in San Diego? Have you ever heard it? When they have those races here in San Diego, you can hear it all over the city because it is so loud.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Was it Britannica like medical ship for the British Navy?
That's a good possibility.
Because
okay, it is project time, and Kiyoshi is going to show you this week what our project is, and it'll be connected with our Sink and Float.
All right, you guys. So we are going to have an awesome project for you this week. What floats your boat? So what that entails, find anything in your house that you think will float. So we already covered about density and buoyancy earlier in the class. So with that in mind, what do you think will float? Probably not a bowling ball, right? So that won't be the base of our boat. Tin foil, aluminum foil, that would be a good base for your boat. So
what about my Lego?
Legos float. They do. Don't make it too heavy though. Yeah, Legos cardboard is another good one. Paper gets wet, so that may not be the best thing to use as a flotation device. Rubber, yeah. I use a tray from Chipotle. Made a little hole for the sail. So we're gonna call this my galleon, okay? This is the galleon. But I also made a little speed racer out of, this is just a foil, tin foil lid, but this is aluminum foil that I made another little speed racer boat. And I don't know if they float yet, so we're gonna see if it floats, okay?
Nice.
So come along with me.
What do you guys think? Are they going to float?
Yeah, you guys think it will float?
Who thinks they will float? No? Yes? No?
Water out.
Okay. Well, why do you think it's going to float?
Actually, I don't think it might float because he said he made a hole so water could get in the ship, and if water gets in the ship, the thing's gonna sink.
Okay. So
Okay.
If the hole's sealed, then yeah, it's gonna.
there you go.
Okay.
So there's
float.
not a whole lot of mass there. So yes, it floats. It's
Okay,
not
now let's see
dense.
if the speed racer will float.
All right. Whoa.
2 for
Good
2.
job, Kiyoshi.
Yes.
He's a shipbuilder. Congratulations.
And the dog.
So cute. Kiyoshi, those are fantastic boats. Nice work.
So, what floats your guys' boat? Wherever it is.
Okay, does that give you some ideas for making your own boats? So this week's challenge and project is to build a boat that will float. Are you ready for the challenge? All right, and once you build your boat, go ahead and test it out. And then if you can take a picture and post it on our Trident Treats website, and then maybe write a little something about why you think it floats. Or if it doesn't float, maybe you could tell us why it didn't float.
Like
Okay.
if they hit an iceberg or something.
Yeah, you never know. Hey, so I hope you all have some great ideas for your boats.
Guys, this project's really fun. Please do this one. It's I'm watching them float around. I'm so happy right now.
Yeah, so Kiyoshi's going to be able to enjoy his boats for the rest of the afternoon. All right, so that does it for this week's class. And Kiyoshi, what have we got coming up next week?
Next week is one of my favorite ones. It's not Shark Week, but it's my second favorite till Shark Week. We have cute sea animal creatures. So we're going to be dealing with dolphins, otters, seals, all the cute little underwater creatures. We're going to deal with all of them.
So fun. I can't wait. All right.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
Yep. See you all next week. Can't wait to see your boats.
Absolutely.